Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this EPALE UK webinar. Sorry we started a little bit late. My name's Emma. I'm the Web Content Manager for the EPALE UK National Support Service, and I'll be leading this webinar today. I hope you find this session useful and informative and that it helps you to enjoy all of the benefits that EPALE has to offer. We'll be taking questions at the end of the webinar, but you may find that we naturally answer them as we go through the user tour and the content submissions. Let's begin by taking a look at the agenda for today. In the first half of the webinar, we'll be taking a tour of the platform and looking at some of the features and benefits of using EPALE. In the second half, we'll look at how you can contribute high-quality content to the site, what the process is, and what makes good content. We'll be using blog posts as an example today, but many of the same principles can be applied across all the content types, which include news articles, resources, and events information. Before we move on, we frequently get asked, how do you pronounce EPALE? Well, there's no right or wrong way, but we generally refer to the platform as EPALE. Some people say EPALE, some people say EPALE. It doesn't matter how you say it, but we refer to it as EPALE. Okay, so let's begin by explaining what EPALE is and the role that it plays in adult education. EPALE stands for Electronic Platform for Adult Learning in Europe and is funded by the European Commission. It's a free online multilingual open membership community. It targets teachers, trainers and practitioners working in adult learning across Europe. EPALE provides adult learning professionals with access to free online learning resources to help improve the quality of adult learning provision and the exchange of good practice. It's currently supported by 38 national support services who aim to ensure that the platform reflects the priorities of the adult learning communities in their respective countries. You can access content in different European languages. However, we focus on content in English on the UK branch. We do this by publishing a range of high-quality content that notifies users of developments in adult education, highlights interesting projects, and supports their continuing professional development. EPALE is also an excellent hub for networking and generating online discussions with people who do a similar job to you, work in the same sector, or have similar interests to you. Here are some key figures. We're the fastest growing online adult learning community. Currently, we have over 50,000 users, and this number is continuing to grow. During the user tour, we'll be looking at how to register on the platform and set up a new profile. And then we'll have a look at the National Support Service team pages, where you can find lots of helpful additional resources to help you navigate and use the site. We'll have a look at communities of practice and collaborative spaces. These are special groups formed of users who have similar interests or work in the same sector and want to share ideas. And then we'll find out where to go to add content when we want to contribute. So let's kick off with the user tour. To set up your new user profile, you'll need to be registered on the platform. I'm going to show you exactly where to go to get yourself registered. Okay, so when you first go to EPALE, on the home page you will see an option up here in the corner to register, log in and follow us on social media. So you want to select register, which will take you to this page. Some information here, and then you'll need to fill in your username give us an email address, and choose your contribution languages. So English needs to be one of them. We will be expecting you to contribute content in English, but obviously we're a European platform, so it's always good to know if you can contribute in other languages, so you can select those as well. Add your name, your last name, the country, which in this case already it will be the United Kingdom, and then accept the terms and conditions once you've had a read of those. It's always a good idea to subscribe to our newsletter. We notify you of major news. We flag our leading content. So it's always worth subscribing. If you change your mind later, you can always choose not to. And we really like our users to contribute content. We hope that you will be keen to contribute content at the end of this webinar. If you are contributing content, really you need to click this box, because if I receive your content and I need to make edits and I need to communicate that to you, I won't actually be able to unless you've ticked this box. So you may find that there's like quite a delay with your content being published and I have to wait for you to come to me. So always tick this. Then you'd hit create a new account, and you will get a notification email when your account's been set up, and then you can set up a password. So now that we've got access to the platform, we'll have a look around. We'll find out some more information about EPALE and the work that we do. We'll find out about team information and our ambassadors, and we'll see supporting documents and guidelines that you can use to help you navigate through the platform and contribute content. So I'm going to take you back to EPALE now. So firstly, if you want more information about EPALE, you can go to the toolbar here and select about EPALE and then EPALE in your country. This will tell you about EPALE in all the different countries. If you go down to the bottom, you've got the UK. And this takes us to the National Support Services pages. So this is where you can find out more about the work that we do. You can also find out about the team, our ambassadors, stakeholders, and our role in adult learning in the country. First, I'm going to show you some team information. If there's someone here that you need to directly contact, like you have a content query, for example, that would be me. So you can find out who you need to talk to here. And if you look at the work programme, that will tell you about our priorities for 2019 to 2020 and a bit more about what we do. But you will also be able to find the thematic calendar. So that tells you about different themes that will be covered in content throughout the year. If you come down a bit further, you'll find out about our Star Supporter competition. We're currently in our final run for this year, so that's the information here. But you can also see previous competitions. And we've got supporting materials. There's previous webinars, videos, and other documents uploaded to help you use the site. Here we also have a how-to guide to help you with uploading content. So we're going to cover that in the webinar, but should you need that information later, this is where you'd come. And we also have top tips for writing content. So this is for each of the content types. It's always worth downloading these before you write your content because they're really helpful and they make sure you haven't missed anything out. And again, down here, for example, we have our ambassadors page. So if you're interested in becoming an ambassador for EPALE, it is worth having a look here. You can see the kinds of things that the other ambassadors do, how being an ambassador benefits them. And then you should be able to find them in the user directory, and you can see the kind of content that they've contributed as well. So now let's have a look at how you can use EPALE for networking. There are many features on the platform which support networking. There's the partner search tool, where you can search for professional partners. There are also communities of practice and collaborative spaces, which are online spaces. So communities of practice, these are for groups of people who do similar work or have similar interests to you. You can share ideas, resources, and best practice. You can also share relevant news and events, and communities of practice just offer a space that supports meaningful discussions about adult education, and it can encourage members to share their thoughts and opinions. So we'll have a look at how you find communities of practice now. So you start by clicking on community activities here, and you can select the first option, communities of practice. So here you can see the list of communities of practice that already exist. So you can search for things relevant to your sector or your area. For example, I've put in STEM there, and it's coming up with different groups. If you like the look of any of those groups, you can just click subscribe to that group, and you'll get a notification when you've been added, and then you can start adding your comments and resources and things like that. If you can't find a group that you're interested in, you can click set up a new community of practice here, and then you can request to set up your own group. So you'd fill out these sections and then click submit, and once it's been approved, you'll get a notification. We also have collaborative spaces. So these are similar to communities of practice, but they're for private groups. So you can't view the content or contribute to discussions unless you're a member of the group. Members are invited to join the group, and the invitations are controlled by the person who set up the group. They tend to have more direct and specific reasons for their creation than communities of practice, so they lead to really focused discussions among members, and I'll show you how to find those now. So up here on the toolbar, we choose Tools and Portals, and then we go to Partner Search. So this is also the Partner Search tool here. And you can click on Request a Collaborative Space. So it's this box over here, and it will take you to a form similar to Communities of Practice. So you fill those out, submit, and you'll get a notification when it's been approved. Because you're a new member and you haven't set up or joined any of these spaces yet, you won't see this as an option under the community activities menu. So it should, once you've been added to groups or you've set up groups, they'll appear here in this menu. But until then, you have to request over here. Now we'll talk about adding content to the site. We always want our users to contribute content. You can access the collections of whatever type of content that you want to contribute to by going, I'll take you back to EPALE a second. So you can access it from the home page. You click on whatever type of content you want to submit. So say it was a news article, click on news. And over here in the corner, there's an option to suggest an article, which then opens up the digital manuscript. So it's the same for all content types. They will have a little link in the corner over here. So you just select which type of content, access through there, and then click suggest. We'll have a look at the submission process in more detail when we move on to the content section of the webinar. So now I'd like to do a poll. And what I'd like to know is what you value most in a website. So you should have an option to manage this, respond to this now. So I'd like to know, do you value easy navigation and usability more than sleek and professional design, or do you feel the other way? Seems that most people are going for easy navigation and usability, and I would agree with that. Sometimes the two things are kind of linked, but I would definitely say navigation is more important than the way a website looks. So now we'll have a look at what's considered high quality content for the site. So to help you produce good content, we'll look at what's expected from news articles, resources, events information, and blog posts. We'll go into more detail with blog posts and add one to the site, taking into account the individual parts of the digital manuscript. We'll also discuss what makes quality content and how images and visual media can enhance the text. To get a really good finish with the presentation of our content, we'll need to experiment with formatting and may go through a few drafts before we get our finished post. This is not time-consuming. It can be done very quickly and makes a big difference to the final presentation of your piece. Once you've submitted your work, it will come to me for approval before being published. If any edits need to be made, this will be communicated to the author. So what actually makes great content for EPALE? Well, regardless of the kind of content, there are some things we need to consider. Does it actually hold value for teachers, trainers, and practitioners? Content should be relevant to these people and not to the learners themselves. Always remember to direct your content at teachers and not learners. The content can be broad or niche, so you could write a blog post about developments in higher education, which would apply to many users, or about something very unique or specific. As long as it applies to teachers, trainers, and practitioners of adult learners, your content will be relevant and appropriate for the platform. We want content to be well presented and structured logically. The first paragraph of any piece of content should introduce the focus. For longer pieces such as blog posts, it's a good idea to break the post up into sections, but we'll cover this more later. We also want you to aim to grab the reader's attention and draw them in. This is best done with a short and engaging title. Titles that incorporate wordplay can be a fun and interesting choice. For example, we've previously published a blog about prison education called Prison Education, a Hard Sell. So the sell wordplay was really effective. We also want content to be relevant to the UK, and typically events covered should be taking place here. You can discuss projects that involve other EU partner countries or world issues that relate to the UK, but the focus must be on things happening in this country to hold the most value for our users. And you can include links and other information to additional reading in your blog posts or your other content. And this just helps to complement the content and has direct relevance. So it could be, for example, an organisation website or more information on a project. So what do we expect from EPALE news articles? We want them to contain stories that communicate big messages to the majority. This means we want to see things such as policy changes, program updates, and major announcements that will impact on many users. We want them to be short and snappy, getting the main point across quickly and keeping the reader engaged. We like them to be between 200 and 300 words, ideally, and we like an interesting and preferably short title. Remember that news is time sensitive, so make sure your news is recent. Resources come in many different forms. You could supply documents or link to large online programs. Resources can include, but aren't limited to, case studies, reports, frameworks, and lesson plans. Make sure that you have permission to publish the resource on EPALE before writing your content. Also, make sure that the resource was published 5 years ago or less. You can search for resources to see if they have already been published and avoid creating duplicates. There's no specific word count for resource information, but if possible, aim for 150 words minimum. If you want to add events, please make sure they are being held in the UK. We can't publish events that take place outside it, as these would appear on the EU countries' own EPALE. Include all the essential information that the user will need, including the location, time and date, and the ticket price. You should also explain who the event will be beneficial for and why. Include the use of bullet points and numbered lists to help important information stand out. This could be aims and objectives or learning points in a formatted list. Contact details for the event organizer are also useful, so add those so users can get in touch if they have any queries. And include other important information of relevance, for example, whether the venue is accessible to those with disabilities, or if users need to let event organisers know of any dietary requirements. Aim to publish the event page at least a month before the event. We can indeed publish events that are happening in very short spaces of time, but it's best to give users as much time as possible to book and make travel arrangements. Events don't have a specific word count either, but aiming for around 150 words is recommended. Blog posts are the longest content form on EPALE, and we'll be taking a look at these in more detail later. As a general overview, this is what we expect from our blog posts. The word count should be between 600 and 900 words. If longer, it can be split into parts and they can be linked together. If it's shorter, this is sometimes okay if it's got other bulky media with it, like a video. We want you to include at least 3 headings to help break up the text and give it good structure. Headings also help to keep both the writer and the reader focused. The title is important, and we like titles that draw in the reader as always. So that one I mentioned earlier about prison education is a good example. Try to keep the title to 10 words or less if you can. Imagery is important in all of the content, but in particular blog posts. We ideally like 3 meaningful images that complement the text. Placing one larger image the width of the page at the top of the blog post looks great. This should be 800 pixels in width to get it to come out at the right width once you've saved your content. Don't worry about it appearing as half the width before saving. Smaller images can be used inside the main body, either 2 or 3. We also like to include an author or organisation biography at the end of the post. This will introduce the author, the kind of work they do, and any major achievements or projects that they're currently working on, as well as educational interests. This can sometimes help with identifying appropriate communities of practice. And don't forget the image. Picture the author bio inside the back cover of a novel. We're aiming for something similar. So now I've got another poll. This one is specifically about content. And I'd like to know if you prefer reading long or short pieces of content. So maybe think about the kind of things that you like to read on EPALE. If you prefer news articles, then maybe that's short content. If you really like reading blogs, that's going to be long. This also helps us to decide what we should be publishing for you in the future, and it just helps us to understand our users better. It's looking like quite an even result. So the majority, just about the majority, prefer longer pieces. I'd say it's good to have both. I'm now going to show you an example of a good blog post on EPALE. And this was written by a user who was working on a mobility project. So as you can see, this mobility project took people abroad to work in different places. One of them was a gardening centre. So that's the reason for this image here. It just really sets off some of the topics talked about really nicely. We've got a good use of sectioning. These headings are kept quite brief, and it just really gives it good structure. We've got the use of lists, and we've got a variety of images, so the kind of work that people have been doing, as well as locations that they visited. There are some quotes from learners in here, which is really nice. It's really good, I think, in blog posts to try and get personal stories in there, and they've linked to a trailer of the project. So that's good, relevant, extra reading. And here we've got kind of like a project bio with an image of one of the students using a computer to complete design work. This bit below is something that we put in. It's just links users to further reading that relates to the themes or the sector they've just been reading about. This is something that we add in. You don't need to worry about this. So when you submit content to us, there are two ways it happens. Usually it's directly submitted in electronic form on the site, so it will come through in my content log electronically to notify me that you've sent it in. Sometimes if we contact you directly and we've requested content from you, we know exactly what we want you to do, we'll just send a template out to you, so it will look like a Word document. It gives a little bit more information, as you can see here, about what we expect. This is also covered in the top tips document, which expands on this further. That was one of the documents in the NSS pages that I showed you earlier. But essentially what I want to show you here is that it's just a mirror reflection pretty much of the digital manuscript. So they are effectively the same. So now we're going to look at adding a blog post to the site so we can see the different features that we'll use and fill content about submitting content in the future. We're going to talk about adding the title, the summary. The summary is quite easy to miss because it's a link that you have to open up that I'll show you in a minute, but it is important to get the summary. If you struggle with it, it's something that we can add in later, but it's not part of the main blog post text. It is like a standalone thing. And then I'll show you how to put the body in as well. So bear with me and I'll take us back to EPALE. Okay, so we'll add a blog post. So we select blog. Over here we go to the suggest a blog post option. And you can put content straight into the digital manuscript, but as we all know, sometimes things can go wrong with computers, or the connection could be lost or something like that. So it's better to have it in a Word document anyway that you can then copy and paste in. So you could just write your content into a Word document and then copy and paste. I am just going to get the blog post now. Okay, so this is an example of a really good content competition submission we had from one of our users. And it's talking about anxiety and how that can be a good thing as well as a negative thing. So this is what I was talking about with the summary. It's really subtle, but if you click that link, it will open that up, and then you can just copy and paste into there. Let's copy the whole thing. Let's go back. Okay, I'm just going to open this up big. It's going to make it easier. Okay, so what we want to do first of all is remove formatting. That's what this does here. If we don't do that, formatting that's been put into it in the Word document will not carry through properly, and some of it will appear to be different sizes to what you wanted it to be. So take the formatting out and then add back in afterwards. So we may want to highlight certain bits that we think are really important, put them in bold. We may want to format this maybe to make it look more like a list and organize it better. So this is just a case of thinking about how you think content will best be presented, and then just trying to achieve that. I'm not going to add the entire blog post in, I would just show you parts of it. For example, up here we might want to add an image. So you slow that down slightly. Here we're going to click on the media browser. And I'm going to choose this picture of a brain. And I'm just going to add a description. So this helps if the image doesn't show, but also to give an image more context. This is a really basic description right now. And then we might want to move our image around. So maybe we want it on the right. We can add some spacing in here. We usually add 8 here and 8 here, which just moves it away from the writing slightly and makes it look better. So that's inputting our content. And then the next tab is going to be metadata. So it's essential for helping our users, as well as people outside of EPALE, to find content that's relevant to them. And we do this by attributing certain tags to the content. And this helps to boost search engine optimization and bring the right users to us. Excuse me. Firstly, so I'll take you back to EPALE and show you what we add in for this bit. You don't need to worry about this section if it's difficult for you to decide on what to add, because we can add it in very easily, but we always want English as the language. It should be preset for that. If your blog post talks about a case study, you can tick for the case study section. And then we're going to want to add in themes that relate to our content to make sure our users can find it. So those people on a mobility project went abroad, they learned about different cultures, so we'll have cultural education. They've also built life skills, so we'll add that in. And it's an Erasmus Plus project, so there is an option here to select that too, so we'll add that. Keywords also help people to find our content. One of them has to be the UK, and then you can just choose other things that you think relate. If you find this difficult, don't worry, we can add it in for you. So that was metadata. And then the last tab that you will see is the slideshow tab. This kind of allows you to flag content for the carousel. The carousel is the moving image on the home page at the top that shows you like around sort of 15-20 different pieces of leading content. You can flag your content to go on the carousel, but it's a final decision really that rests with the team, so it depends on our final decision as to whether it will appear on there. We might also receive your content and then decide ourselves that we'd like to add it there, and we'll usually let you know this when we send you the link to your content once it's been published. The description part we only want is 20 words ideally, so it's a summarized summary effectively. But the one bit that we always need you to add, regardless of whether it's going to go onto the carousel or not, is the slide image. So this acts as a kind of thumbnail in our content library. So you always add this in, and it has to be 1140 by 400 pixels. It has to be that size. So you can edit your image down to that size. Again, if that's something you're having trouble with, don't worry, because we can add images in, slideshow images in later. So again, we'll just say brain here. Ideally, we want it to give more description, but for the sake of time, I will just show you that. So we've got our content. Well, we had our content. I'm going to preview it and see if it appears again. Oh yeah, it's showing in here, strange. So it gives you a kind of preview of what it's going to look like. Once you're happy and you've added everything in, you can click save, and then it will come to us for approval, and we'll communicate any changes to you. And then it's really just a case of checking it and making sure that you're happy with it. Once you've added your content, before you submit, we kind of want you just to have a final check through, a final proofread. So you'll be looking for the things that we've talked about already, like headings. Are they styled in a way that makes them stand out? How many pictures have you included? Do they actually complement the text? Do they fit nicely with the text flowing around it? Do you have bold and italicized information to make things stand out? Have you used bullet points or numbered lists in a suitable way? And also check that any links that you include to, for example, project websites or other organization websites, make sure that they do work before you submit. So yeah, it's just a case of checking that you're happy with the content and then submitting. And that's it from us. I hope that you've enjoyed the webinar and that you feel confident in using the platform, and that you're really keen to submit content to us soon. As you know, we love to receive your content, so hopefully you will be in contact with us about that soon. There will be more webinars coming up in the future.